Welcome to Post Colonial Space. I'm Masood Raja. And in today's conversation, I would like to talk to you really candidly about how to establish yourself as a scholar in your field. Now, my field of study is post colonial studies with various permutations of it. But by and large, that's what I'm known for, and that's what I did when I was employed at a university. And that's the field in which I have mostly published. Now, chances are you're currently either working on a PhD or thinking of going into a doctoral studies program. As you learn the field, get involved in research and start writing and publishing, some of the things that could help you and that have helped me as a scholar are things that are pretty simple, but a lot of times professors, they don't teach us these things. So first thing, for every seminar that you take in your field of study or general seminars, chances are at the end of the semester, you will write a paper. Most of the times the papers tend to be from 15 to 25 pages. And every student writes one for pretty much every seminar. So think about it this way. If you are working on a PhD in the United States of America, you'll take about 30 credit hours of courses, right? That's like 10 courses, or at least 12, 36. That means if you take 12 courses over your doctoral studies, you will most probably write 12 papers. Now, that means your scholarly journey has already begun, even though you're still in your doctoral studies. So my first advice, when you decide on a paper topic for a seminar or a graduate class, think of that paper as a step in your growth as a scholar. Not just as a paper that you write and forget about, but something that excites you, that's related to your field of study, and that you can eventually build on and publish. So let's say you take your first class, it's Introduction to Postcolonial Studies. Don't just write a simple paper, write a paper that is well informed and that has the makings of a publishable paper. You might just put it aside. You take another class, African Literature and Modernity. I'm just making it up. Now, when you start thinking of writing a paper for that class, don't think of it in isolation. Think of what you previously wrote, right, for the other class. Ask yourself, am I taking this conversation beyond that paper? Is my stance still the same about politics of the text and what I think about it, or has it altered? If it has altered, take a note of it. That means you have grown as a scholar. But the second paper that you're writing is with the awareness that you previously wrote another paper, and somehow you're trying to see how you have transitioned from there to here. Do this for all the papers that you write in your graduate school, so that by the time you finish your coursework, you have 12 possibly publishable papers. And in those papers, you have not just written them in isolation, there is a narrative of your scholarship that is developing. That's the first thing I would highly encourage you to do. It has huge benefits for you in terms of you being a scholar and your scholarly growth, but also in the job market. The second time when I applied for jobs, I still remember I was doing a campus visit on a really fine university, and they had set up my meetings with different professors. And one of them was looking at my CV And she just had this look of wonder in her eyes. And she said, "How do you do this?" Because what she was looking at it is that within 1 year, I had published a book, 4 or 5 articles, and about 3 or 4 book chapters. So, I didn't have a clear answer for her. I just told her that I have a very understanding wife, which I do, and who supports me. But what wasn't in that CV was that those papers might have come out in 1 year, but the work was done years ago, right? I was actually picking up my papers from my graduate school and building them up, revising them, and sending them out, right? So, second suggestion then is always have something under review and something that you're currently writing and something that you're researching. That's the life of a scholar. I mean, you have to enjoy it, right? It's not just a job. So make sure that you're constantly working on something and sending it out and researching. But here is another key. Remember, we're talking about you establishing yourself as a scholar. As you work on those papers, think of what you've published previously. Because, first of all, you want to know whether or not your current ideas or thoughts are in concert with what you have previously stated. Or, if they are not, why have your thoughts changed? So that you can account for it. You can point out, in 2022, I wrote this, but right now my opinion has shifted because of these reasons. You can add it in a footnote. So, what it does is you're building a body of work that is interconnected. And I'll give you an example. Okay. In 2006, I published an article. I was a graduate student. I later learned that the article, even though I thought it was good, had made one huge mistake, an error, right? And there were chances that it could be misread. So I wrote another article on a completely different topic, but with the intention of correcting my previous assertion. And in that article, I openly stated that this is my revised point of view on this particular topic. I sent it to a really prestigious journal. The journal reviewed it and they told me you have to wait 2 years before we can publish it. So the strategic choice that I made was to say, I will wait. Not because I was worried about the prestige of the journal, but because I wanted it on record, right? Because if someone went and dug out that article, from early 2000s and said, "Hey, Raja, you are being stupid here," which I think I was, I could point to them that, no, I revised this position and you can read this article. So that means as a scholar, you're aware of your previous stances. And if you were wrong, you correct yourself and you publish something else in which the correction is incorporated. Now, you can only do this if you are thinking of your work as a body of work, as an oeuvre, right? And if you're aware of what your stances were previously and where you are now. So the biggest thing, in my opinion, would then be to be aware of what you have said and what you have written and what you have published, and then offer an account of where your thought is currently and why it is there. Now, one other thing that would help you in this process is to write about things that you passionately care about. Don't follow the trends. I know a lot of people do, right? This is hot. People sometimes send me a comment, what is the hot topic these days? And I was like, I don't know what is hot. I don't write like that, right? What you want to do is figure out what excites you. What is it in this world that you want to do with your work? What issues do you want to deal with, right? That when you pick up your pen or sit in front of your computer, you're imbued with this spirit of wanting to say something. make a difference, right? Convince some people. Humbly share your thoughts and ideas. When you lead with that, that means you will never be looking for topics. You already know what you want to accomplish in the world, right? And you find different ways of doing that. And that then makes you cognizant of where your thought was, where it is now, and where it will be tomorrow, right? As a scholar, then, this methodical way of writing about things that you're passionate about will then give you the most important thing that a scholar ought to have, and that is a voice, right? A voice. How do you see the world? How do you write about it? How do you think about it? How do you argue for social justice, for equity, for peace, right? So, what will end up happening, which I saw in my own career too, and I wasn't a big shot scholar or anything, but that after a while, when people started teaching your materials, when they started discussing your materials, since you had paid attention to where your thought was and where it was going, they could always relate to your older work with an eye towards your present work by saying, oh, yeah, he says this here, but he revises that opinion here and he mentions it here, right? So, know what you care about. Write always as if it's a part of your larger repertoire. Write about things that you're passionate about and be aware of what you have stated earlier and what you're saying now. There's a cautionary note here too. I mean, if you look at a lot of scholars from Pakistan, India, some of my friends have told me, a lot of people who are powerful faculty members, they are caught up in this, race to publish a lot. So what do they end up doing? I mean, pick up any Pakistani journal or Indian journal for that matter. Most of the essays written by graduate students are multi-author essays. Why? Because the professor who advised the student insists that their name be added to that article, right? Sometimes they insist that they should be added as the first author. Now, that might give them 300 publications, right, or 200 publications, but what that doesn't give them is a voice as a scholar. Because, if you are appropriating your graduate students' work and attaching your name to it, it's not really your thought. It's not really your work. So, one paper could be about, John Keats, and the other people ends up being about Don DeLillo, right? There is no consistency there. One paper could be a Marxist paper, the other could be a deeply conservative religious theorized paper, right? So what you end up having is a lot of publications that you've appropriated, attached your name to, but all of them combined do not produce a coherent, complex voice. And that reduces your impact in the world, right? It might get you a job, right, or a promotion, but not a voice as a scholar. So, not to belabor the point, use your time in graduate school to figure out what is it that you're passionate about. Choose the topics for your seminars that are related to your passion. Write them in a way so that you know they're building on each other and that they are eventually publishable. And then when you become a scholar and you're a professor, be aware of what you have written before, why, what do you want to write now, and always have this circularity, things being reviewed, things being published, things that you're researching, things that you're writing. If you have that cycle going, you will never have to worry about, oh, I'm not publishing enough, or I need to publish more, because you'll always have something going on in your mind. So what it will do for you, and I can promise you if you try it, is that you will become a living, breathing scholar. I mean, you could be on a walk and you could be thinking about, all right, what does Rohinton Mistry say about this in his novel, right? I'm teaching Binti next week, right? A science fiction novel. And right now my mind is going about, okay, what themes are there? How does she deal with this galactical racial identity of the protagonist, right? So it would become sort of your natural thought process to think in scholarly terms and not think because you're forced to think because you enjoy it. Thinking about complex things would become an enjoyable experience for you. So that's all I have for this brief video. I hope it is useful to you. Please feel free to share your thoughts and experiences. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I would love to have your support. And that way you will keep getting the notifications whenever I post something new. Stay safe, take care of each other, and as always, from me to you, peace and love.